Well, hello everybody. This is Chasing Night Shadows, episode 1, I guess, of our live show. And tonight we will be having Scott Carpenter on to discuss his research and recent things that he's involved in. But first, I want to introduce my co host here. Gene, are you there?
I'm here.
All right, we switch over. Actually, can you say something else? Say something again.
I said I'm here.
It won't switch over. It's still stuck on Scott's face. All right. See if I can fix that. All right. Sorry, guys. First time, messing up. Well, I can't get your face up, which maybe that's a good thing there, Gene. Anyway, um, I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna go ahead and bring Scott on. So how you doing today, Scott?
Doing good. How are you?
I'm doing very well. I appreciate you joining us
Good.
on the show. Um, so, to first start off with, what really got you into Bigfoot research and got you into the field?
Uh, what really got me into it was a sighting or an incident I had when I was fishing up on Tellico Lake. And I'd done some half-hearted whoops that I'd seen on some videos. And then I got a reaction to it, and something came down to the shoreline, raised a big ruckus, and went back off into the woods. And that kind of piqued, kind of got me thinking and piqued my curiosity, and that's what got me started.
Way of doing your research is you have like a camera that you put on backwards to record things behind you. Is that correct?
That's correct. I call it the back trail camera,
Okay.
and I kind of early on in my research, I kind of figured out that they were watching. They're concerned about where your eyes are pointing, which way you're looking, and so I discovered it by accident when I was holding a camera. Uh, like holding it against my body, and I'd bent over, and the camera was pointing to the left, and caught a few frames of one just kind of like peeking out at me as I had my back turned. And so after seeing that, I kind of got onto the idea that that they they're peekers, and they're looking around and watching you. They don't care to get on camera. Seems like if they had the choice between your eyes, you seeing them, or the camera, that they'll take the camera. So that's kind of how that got started, and it's paid off. I mean, it's a lot of work because you take hours and hours. I've literally got probably over 1,000 hours worth of video, and it all has to be reviewed because you're obviously not watching it. So but it paid off. It's paid off with some pretty decent footage. Well, I've had two that I was aware of. Well, one I was aware of. I actually had saw one, but the week before that, it's the one I got on the back trail that I didn't realize was behind me until I reviewed the footage. And then the week after, I was stupid enough to go back in there, and then one jumped up on a tree, and we had a stare down, and so that's the one where I made eye contact with it. The one on the tree was more like I guess your German Shepherd type head. It had it had a true dog like snout, longer snout. It had big ears, set just about like a dog's ears. I only saw it from the shoulders ahead. It basically, the foliage was, it was just about as tall as I am, and it like jumped up on the side of a tree and hung its claws in, and then leaned back and looked over its shoulder. And so I saw this part. I could see the shoulder, maybe the top of the arm, and then the head as it it turned and looked at me. So it was just, I mean, it still gives me the creeps because this thing had, I tell people when I'm interviewed, it had dead eyes. I don't know. when I've had eye contact with a Bigfoot before, and there's something there. There's personality there. There's a soul, so to speak.
Right.
And you know, but when this thing was looking at me, I mean, it was just there wasn't anything there. I mean, it was just cold black eyes, and it looked, it was almost like it was looking through me instead of at me.
Wow.
It was really a creepy feeling.
And I've heard a lot that the Bigfoot and the Dogman kind of don't get along. That they kind of have their separate areas. Is that something that you found in your research?
Well, I was actually doing Bigfoot research when I encountered the Dogman, and I was in a Bigfoot area. And after the Dogmen showed up, the Bigfoot moved. I had at that time I had what's called a feeding station, and where I was, leaving them food and gifts and all that good stuff. And after the Dogman showed up in this area, they wouldn't come in that area anymore. So I moved. I moved it. I went about 3/4 of a mile away to another location and set a feeding station up. And then the Bigfoot showed up over there, and we just I just didn't do anything back in that area where the dog man had appeared. Now, if I seen a conflict with them, I've not personally seen any interaction. I just know that the Bigfoot wouldn't go back to that feeding station after all that happened.
Um, Now you're working right now. You just wrote a book. What's the title of your book?
The latest book's called Truth Denied, the Sasquatch DNA Study.
Okay. And what kind of evidence have you gotten through DNA?
Sorry.
Oh, you're fine. What have you gotten
There's
through?
no.
All right.
Go
And
ahead.
sorry, go ahead. What kind of information have you gotten through DNA about Bigfoot, uh, or what have you found?
Well, the book is about my involvement in the DNA study, and from kind of like from a researcher standpoint about all, it's the whole thing, all the craziness that went on around it. But what the study basically found that the Bigfoot is a human hybrid. The mitochondrial DNA, which comes from the mother's side, was human. The nuclear DNA that comes from the father's side is unknown, still unknown, and it was very odd. It had a lot of mutations, and just was very strange DNA. So, Bigfoot, Sasquatch is a human hybrid of some sort. Yeah, she was. Yeah, she was heading the project. There was 7 or 8 other scientists that worked on it, but she was the front person. Yes.
Right. Okay. And so your book kind of goes into detail as far as what your involvement was with that project.
That's right, and kind of tells the story from my point of view. About how the study got started, who was involved, all the what happened. Because there was a big it was extremely controversial. Melba was personally destroyed and attacked, lost her business, lost her ability to make any income. Basically, you know, she'd been a professional witness for the state. And would come in as an expert in at certain times, and of course they couldn't use her anymore. The state of Texas refused to use her because they bring up Bigfoot, of course, and that would just undermine anything she tried to do. And then she's a vet, she was a vet, and she had a DNA lab, and her main source of revenue was doing DNA verification on horses and cows. Someone would pay several $1,000s for bull semen from a high end bull, and she would, and they bring it to her and say, hey, verify that this is where this came from, or this is the bull that came from, and so she would run DNA stuff like that, DNA verifications and other things. So she lost all that. I mean, all that was gone. So yeah, it was for her. It was they just literally destroyed her, and they went after everybody else involved in the study as well. You know, so it talks about the whole man. It's a song. It's,
Well, you kind of broke up there at the end. Did I still have you, or did you freeze?
can you?
I can.
Okay, Gene said he can hear me. I hope you can.
Yeah, I can. I think there was a little hiccup in my internet there for a second.
Sure. You know, I mean, I was just saying that the DNA study itself, it was an ordeal that lasted for several years, and I just go through all that. Many people want to say that it was hoaxed or it's a bunch of garbage and a bunch of bunk, and so and every time I go to speak or someone, people are always asking me, well, what about this DNA study? If I Google it, it comes up, that it was all a bunch of horse hockey, and people are telling me, Dr. Meldrum says it's a bunch of garbage, and you know, Cliff Barrickman thinks it's hogwash. What's going on? What's the story? So that kind of motivated me to write the book because I knew, so many people asked me, and I'd get surrounded and then have to spend 2 hours telling the whole story. So I thought, well, the best thing is just put it in the book. It's been time. It's been over 5 years, and that way, at least from my perspective, it's not like a Dr. Ketchum, biography or anything. It's of course, she's one of the main focuses of the book, but there's more than just her. There's a lot more moving parts to this thing than just her, and I talk about the people who tried to shoot it down and what was said and how they did things, and so it gets into the nitty gritty of what went on.
Okay. Well, yeah, I remember when the Ketchum report came out, and there was a lot of flack that she received. I do remember that regarding the information she was providing, and
Mm-hmm.
it was something that was kind of like it seemed like the rest of the scientific community that was already. I wouldn't say that they're skeptics. It's more like they're deniers. Were trying to do whatever they could to disprove this information. Is that what you
Yeah.
found?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, you had multiple groups that had different motivations,
Right.
and you had the bipedal ape group, and you had certain people that had made their careers and written books, and that Bigfoot was some sort of bipedal ape, and so this flew in the face of that. So, and then you had those people that are invested. I mean, if you prove what Bigfoot is, and it's no longer a mystery, then a lot of the what a lot of people are not going to want to go and buy books and go to see people speak or whatever else. So so there was a can't come from a living being,
Right.
and so because of that they said, well, it has to be contaminated or it has to be a flawed testing or something incompetent, because something like this just can't exist. It was more of a refusing to accept. Didn't matter that she had 3 genomes, and the 3 genomes all matched each other,
Mm-hmm.
but didn't match anything in GenBank. But
Right.
it's like it was a cognitive dissonance just set in on these guys, and they just couldn't believe it, refused to believe it, and so we had that issue. That was one of the main things as well.
Well, I think a lot of it kind of correlates to some of the Native American legends where they said that they would kidnap maidens, and if the maternal DNA shows human, I mean, that might lend to those legends and say that there may have been some truth to that.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that you would agree with?
Well, possibly. I mean, I think genetically, whatever the species was when it came to be,
Mm-hmm.
uh, the a human female, what was the was on the mitochondrial DNA side. So, I mean, I don't think it was you didn't have like a Bigfoot.
Be speculation on your part, but what would you think, not knowing um, what this DNA is from, what that something else was? Do you have any kind of speculation on your part of what that could be?
Sure, I got another book. Speak here, they all have camps, but I'm always open minded. If I see evidence to the contrary, I definitely look at it. I mean,
I roam
I'm
among
always
camps.
open to new evidence.
I don't really prescribe to anything. I roam among camps. I kind of think that really
Yeah.
with
Well, I'm a
Well,
big.
well,
touching on what you were speaking about earlier, as far as the Melba getting so much flack and negativity.
one way or the other, whether these experiences I've had in the woods are correlated or connected. Um, because I've had some weird things happen that would be on the paranormal spectrum, and it's in relation to where I'm at with Bigfoot, and it's like, okay, was that something connected to Bigfoot? Is it something connected to something else that is paralleling this, or what? Um, but I think for anybody in the Bigfoot community to jump to conclusions on anything unknown, I think is foolish. And there's a number of people that go after the woo-woo people, as they're called. Um, and for me, I think of that as like, how can you with certainty say that this isn't possible? Um, when you rule something out before evidence is provided, or you yourself have ruled it out through experimentation or evidence, I think that's just foolish on my part.
Foolish. Yeah, I agree.
Well,
I
back to
mean,
the point, we have well-known.
they just ignore it. It's not that they don't know it and they know what happens, but they'll just ignore it.
Well,
And
the
it's just
other thing
crazy.
is that it's not just the ignorance; it's the fact that um, to me, we're in a community that by the rest of the population standards, we're nuts. And then we have all this infighting where we have people pitting one another against one another. It's this. Why are we going to use the standards that are used against us? Is basically what I'm trying to say by the
Yeah,
general community. I mean, most
yeah,
people think Bigfoot. Well, we're going to about 50% now of the population, but still, there's still a sizable percentage of the population out there that do not believe Bigfoot exists. And so to me, it's like, why, if you're into this, would you sit there and attack other people that agree with you on most standpoints, except in those minor things where it's like, okay, I've had experiences here. I can't deny it. And like, I can't deny Bigfoot exists because I've seen them. So why are you going to use the same standards that are used against all of us? And that's where I kind of lose a lot of these people that just sit there and go right to attack instead of actually listening. And
yeah.
that really bothers me. I don't have a problem with those that subscribe to their flesh and blood or whatever. I mean, I don't subscribe to anything because I don't know. I mean, for me, there could be flesh and blood. There could be some paranormal aspect. There could be something parallel. It's just a lot of unknowns right now. And to come to conclusions before we even have anything concrete, I just think is foolish on a lot of people's parts. So nobody's an expert in this at all. And in my book, and there's a lot of people. There's a lot of people that self-label themselves that way. Anyway, so yeah, you know, you can't sit there and come out as an expert when really you can't go up to them and or take people to them and say, here they are, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, they're like you said, type of guy. You know, if you don't believe what I believe, that's fine.
Right.
But I think we all need to move in the same direction. But you know, human nature. Unfortunately, you get more than one person in a room, and you're going to have a disagreement, right? And
and there's a way to go about it. There's a way to go about it, and we can have, you know, I didn't mean to cut you off, but we can have constructive criticism, but criticism by itself isn't constructive. And I think a lot of people jump to that. And I've actually, there was some videos I did on my other YouTube channel about Sasquatch Ontario. And I wasn't saying that he was hoaxing or anything like that. I was just giving my rendition based on my experiences of what I was seeing. And I was outright attacked by people that follow him, and I'm like, I'm not saying he's, you know, doing anything wrong or that he's hoaxing or anything. I'm just saying that I have doubts here, or that I'm, you know, looking at this and I have never experienced something, you know, correlative. And people just kind of jump at you. I mean, I was ganged up on, and I'm like, geez, all I did was give my opinion, and I didn't even put down the man. And so we should have constructive criticism, but not sit there and just put people down because you disagree with them. And I just see that so much in the community, and it really bothers me how vicious and vile people can be towards one another when they just simply disagree on something like this. It's like it's not that big a deal. I mean, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
So to a commercial real quick, and that way we can get a little break. But what we're going to do is speaking of aliens, we're going to have an alien from Area 51 telling people how he feels about these people coming out on September 20th. So here it is. Enjoy.
At least 8 foot long.
Yeah, it was bigger.
Yeah, and it was, you know, and you know, I agree with you. I think I talked to Mary Green about it and described, you know, some of the ones I've seen, and she, you know, she said they could have, you know, they sounded familiar. The looks of them were from, you know, very familiar. So, you know, I don't think I have any doubt, because they, you know, a lot of people, when I first started doing this, and I mean, you know, the first day I went in there, I got responses. I mean, stuff was happening the very first day. And a lot of people were like, well, that's crazy. That just doesn't happen the first day. But, you know, thinking about it, you know, if this group you know, was from the Carter farm and they're already acclimated to people, you know what I'm saying? That wouldn't be a stretch for them to, you know, be a little bit more open around me than, you know, you normally would. So I think the speed at which things started happening, you know, I think that was attributed to that group being there.
Well, that was the same day that we went into the feeding station you had set up, and we were actually playing Native American music. And we were just sitting there eating our lunch, and when the music stopped, a big hickory nut came flying and hit me in the side of the leg.
Yeah.
And then we started hearing a bunch of brush breaking and, you know, things of that nature. A lot of something moving around.
Yeah.
And once we started the music back up, it silenced.
Yeah.
Well, down at the
51.
farm, you know, a lot of things like that happened when I was there. We had just the gifts, you know, left at the door. Um, Things that weren't even in the area were left on the porch as gifts. And just the myriad of activity that was going on there. I mean, myself, I could probably write a book about everything that I experienced down there. And for instance, one night, Janice and I were doing a broadcast online, and I'd taken a tape recorder, placed it in the window in the back of the house, and hung a microphone out the window. Well, later on, when we went to get it, the microphone was gone. And in the recording, you can hear something come up. It's sniffing the microphone. And then it sounds like something chewing on it. And then all of a sudden, the microphone disappears. Which that could be attributed to anything, but the bottom of this window was 8 feet off the ground.
Yeah. I remember you telling me about that.
Well, that sounds like when Mary Green had one come up in her research area, and she left the camcorder on the roof of her car, and you can see something as they walk off. They walked off down the trail, and all of a sudden, a few minutes later, all of a sudden the camera starts being moved and played with from something behind. You could hear something walk up to the car, and then the camera started getting manipulated. But whatever it was stayed behind the camera.
Oh yeah.
I know when we were in her area, we did a camp out, and as we were all getting ready to leave, as she was driving out, something came running up and hit the side of her car, and this was a Chevy Blazer, and it put it up on 2 wheels. And when they got back to the cabins where we were staying, there in the dust on the side of her car was a giant handprint.
Yeah, I remember that.
The thing was 2 to 3 times as big as mine.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember we went back the next day and looked for footprints. And we found a place where one had pushed off near where her car had gotten, or her SUV got pushed.
And then, now, have you been back to that area, Scott? That we were talking?
It's been a while, but I go back there, you know, a couple times a year. I still go out there and hunt for sure, but I'll go in. I go in the area not like I used to, but I still go back in there. I mean, there's still activity there, so it's, you know, I'm just not, you know, I'm not actively feeding them or anything. There's no need to be honest with you, and got all the DNA samples I cared to have, so you know, there's really not any need for all that, and I'm not going to waste my time throwing trail cameras up. So.
And for anybody listening, if you hear some strange sounds, I'm actually in Florida right now, and we come down to see that big outwork $50 store. So there's a lot of people going in and out making a lot of noise, so I apologize.
If you hear strange sounds associated with Gene, that could be anything, including flatulence.
That's Taco Bell.
Yeah.
But now, do you have any new projects in the works, Scott, or any?
Well, right now, you know, I just, like I said, I've finished the book, and I'm kind of, you know, I've been on a thing where I've written several books, just like one right after the other. So I'm taking a little bit of time off and doing, you know, the book writing thing. And you know, my research is kind of, you know, it's at the point now where I just go out. I still do the back trail camera, but I just go out and just enjoy my outdoors. I do a lot of hiking and hunting, and you know, I always put the back trail camera on, and just do that. I mean, they're around me and they follow me still and they do the things they've always done. It's just, I'm not actively, I don't have a bunch of cameras in the woods and all that because it's to me, it's, we've done a DNA study. So we got your DNA. I mean, I've got some pretty decent pictures and some video of them. I mean, I don't, it's like we got footprints, I got handprints, I got, it kind of at the point of, if, what else can you do? I mean, I'm not really worried about proving it to anybody anymore. I think we've done what we can do to prove it. And if people don't want to believe it, that's their prerogative. But I'm just, I'm just kind of doing my thing. I've been doing a few more speaking, things, now, I did the Smoky Mountain Bigfoot conference, and I'm doing the Creature Weekend, and then I'm going to do the Cryptid Weekend again, and so I'm going to do some stuff like that, just some speaking venues. But for now, I'm just, like I said, I'm just, really. There's really, I don't know what else to say. It's just, I don't know what else there is to quote research.
Well, just like all of us, when we first get involved in it, we're out there trying to prove everything we can, collect all the evidence we can. But there comes a point, I know it happened with me. There comes a point you just get tired of that. You've already proven to yourself that these things exist. And me, I'm just looking for the encounters now. I don't care. I don't even carry a camera in the woods with me anymore.
Yeah.
I'm looking for that encounter, and that's all I care about. If Joe Schmo down the street don't believe me, that's his prerogative. I really don't care. I proved to myself what I needed to prove, and I'm good with it.
Yeah.
Well, I think I'm the same way. I mean, it's for me. I've seen them. That to me was proof enough, and and all of the other things I've experienced over the years, that to me cemented that there's nothing else it could be but, Bigfoot. So proving it to other people is really not in my radar anymore, like it used to be.
I one thing needs to be touched on was Scott's interaction with Les Stroud.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you want me to? Yeah, he when Les, to be honest with you, Les is a really nice guy. He's as genuine as they come, And he, when he took an interest in the Bigfoot research, I mean, he was open-minded and honest, and he went to different locations. Of course, he only spent a week here, but and he acknowledged that's not long enough. But we went to the area that I research in the Smokies. It's a trail, but and they live near that trail. But anyway, it's a place where I'd had a lot of interaction with them, and he wanted me to go. He was going to walk out at night by himself, and so he sent me on back to the trailhead, and then he stayed up on top, it got dark for about 30, 45 minutes, and then he walked out. Well, when he got in the area where I'd had a lot of interaction, he got mind spoke, and they basically, he actually tells this in a radio interview that he did, and he told me at the time, but he didn't go public with it for a while. But basically, they said, if you'll stay here, we'll come over there and show ourselves to you. And Les was just like, he said, I just told him, he said, I'm not ready for this yet. I can't handle it. I'm not ready. And so he said, no, he said, I'm going to leave. He left. And he actually told me that he went, he actually, just to make sure he wasn't crazy, he went and saw a psychologist and, had himself evaluated and told the psychologist what had happened. And the psychologist said, there's nothing wrong with you. You don't have any mental illnesses or any, long-term effects of this. So, there's some of that quote, what we call woo happened to Les Stroud. And he's had the guts enough to actually admit to it in a radio interview. So.
Now that was something omitted from the show.
Familiar with.
Sorry, Gene. Sorry, Gene. That was something omitted from the show, the TV show.
Yeah, they didn't. At the time, he wasn't ready to put it on the show, so he totally left it out of the TV show. And then he later admitted, at a later interview, it's been about, I think I posted a link to it on my Facebook it's about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago. He was given a radio interview, and he told the story and told what happened. Told, he had mind speak. So, and he still has encounters with them when he goes out now. Now that they know that he knows for sure. There's little stuff that's happening to him. He doesn't say much about it, but he's real involved now with his music and his other ventures. But from time to time he'll email me there's still things that happen that don't make it onto the Survivor Man show because it's Survivor Man.
Right.
It's not
Right.
It's not a big show. So, but yeah, he's still he's still very interested in the subject.
Great. I know I watched the entire series, and he had some really interesting encounters. But I think the most that he experienced was, when he did the Smoky Mountains episode.
Yeah. I think that when he went with Todd Standing, he had that one thing where they messed with the camera and, were able to take the food and him not get anything.
Right.
And I do know that last guy, what's that guy's name? The last one he did where he camped out by himself and the hand pushed in on the tent. That's the other thing he had. That freaked him out. The people that were with him said he squalled. They said they didn't put it in the show, but said when that hand started pushing that tent down towards his chest, that he freaked out. He started yelling. So they cut that out. Yeah, they of course they cut that out. But yeah, he freaked out over it. That kind of freaked him out a little bit.
Was that a Bigfoot show, or was it like a survival show?
No, he called it Survival Man Bigfoot, and he wanted to basically he went to several different areas in the country to several different researchers.
Okay, so this was still Les Strauss that had it.
Yeah, it was still Les Strauss. It was called Survivor Man Bigfoot.
Right, and he had the hand pushed down on the tent.
Yeah, on the very last episode. Gee, was it Washington State? That fellow, I know who he is. I'm trying to think that guy's name. He's a good researcher. He took Les out, and they were like at a camp, and so Les said, "I want to, put my tent up away from you guys." So he went out, a couple 300 yards away from them and set his tent up. And then they stayed, the group, and they said during the night he just started screaming. They went running up there, and that's when, he told them what had happened. I mean, he related in the show, but he didn't kind of tell the full story.
That wasn't Bob Bailey, was it?
Might have been. I can't remember. I'd have to look it up. But
okay.
It's the very last show he did in the series. And
you can still find those if you've got like a Roku or an Amazon Fire Stick on the Amazon Prime channel. You can still find those Survivor Man Bigfoot episodes. Yeah,
they're still there out there. But yeah, that was a real good series he did. In fact, he told me that was some of his highest rated shows he's ever done. And so that's, there's a lot of, still at that time was a lot of interest.
Right.
Well, I don't think that's ever really waned.
Yeah, no, not really. I mean, I think, shows like Finding Bigfoot have run their course.
Yeah.
And they're really, but there are, there are several shows right now on either the History or the Travel Channel where they don't, it's not all about Bigfoot, but they'll hit on Bigfoot from time to time.
Right.
Well, I've noticed a lot of places, like we were just in Gatlinburg about 3 weeks ago, and a lot of the stores up there have started selling Bigfoot merchandise.
Oh yeah, I mean it was, well, to tell you how popular this is, I mean, when I got contacted to do the Smoky Mountain Bigfoot conference, and I asked the girl, I said, well, how many people you think will be there? And she said, we're expecting between 300 and 500. And I said, yeah, that sounds good. And it got picked up. I think Family Circus or Family and a couple of other magazines picked it up and actually put it in their magazine, and it went viral. And the girl that runs the thing said the phone started ringing and people started ordering tickets. Well, of course, we busted through. We were in a small room and they busted through 500 pretty quick. So she contacted the guys that, in Gatlinburg and said, look, can you give us your biggest venue? And they're like, why? She said, because I'm getting, over 1,000 people wanting tickets. And so that place held 1,500 and she sold out. And then she told me they had 4,000 phone calls requesting tickets after they sold the 1,500.
Wow.
And so that's why, and Gatlinburg, the people in Gatlinburg said, this will be a annual event.
Well, it generated a lot of revenue.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, and a lot of interest. I don't know if you saw it. I got interviewed by Channel 10, and I got interviewed by WVLT, and they did a pretty good job. They didn't make me look stupid. I appreciated that. The girl from WVLT actually, of course, they only show like seconds of the whole interview, but she was very inquisitive. Asked me a bunch of questions, good, smart questions, not stupid questions. And and I was very pleased with that. I was, she had genuine interest, and she just didn't make fun of me.
Right. Well, I know most of them at WVLT, and they're all, really good people. But we had the same thing happen a few years ago down in Mary Green's area. Yeah. We did an episode of Liars and Legends for well-known Atlanta network, we'll put it that way. And we told them straight up, don't try to make us seem like idiots. While we were filming, we found the track right off the bat. And while we were filming, there was one screen back. Well, in the final product, they replaced the real screen with a fake Hollywood screen, which sounded completely cheesy.
I would have been extremely angry at that.
We were, and to this day, we've still not gotten the things we submitted to them for the program back.
Yeah. Well, that's the problem with a TV show. If you don't have editorial control, they can do whatever they want to, basically. They can tell you one thing, and they can do another.
We signed a contract with the producers and the network, and, clearly stating we were to get everything back. Well, suddenly it got, quote unquote, lost.
Yeah. Yeah, I know how that is. You have to be real careful when you sign those things. But yeah, for the most part, I think the public, I think is, those people are just kind of just mildly interested in it. They're very open minded.
Yeah,
they are, and it's like we were discussing earlier. It's the negative publicity that really hurts a lot of good people, and it causes a lot of people not to even come forward.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, right now, the sightings are. You start looking at all these different databases. You're talking, thousands, literally thousands of sightings. I know when we were doing Finding Bigfoot, and they did that town hall. Of course, that town hall is it's a contrived thing. Those people are invited, but everybody there, Matt Siebert had put the word out. Everybody there, when there was 75 people there, all had multiple experiences. All of them, throughout their life. It wasn't just like they had that one experience. That was the best thing. I wouldn't on. I got to mull around and talk to people, and it was great because all these people they're wanting to tell somebody, but they don't want to be made fun of.
Right.
I mean,
And that's, that's the thing. Once I got started in it, and a lot of my family and friends found out that I was into it, I had several of them come up to me with encounters they'd had.
Mm-hmm. Everybody's just afraid. I mean, it's. I think it's a lot more common than people think, and more people see them than they realize. It's just everybody's afraid, like you say, afraid to be making fun of.
Mm-hmm.
And those people from the city that aren't aware, to them it's just such a foreign concept. They just make fun of people, and I wouldn't want to be made fun of, so they just keep their mouth shut.
Right.
Well, and a lot of them are professional, and they got to worry about their job or their career, those type of things. Because hey, if somebody comes out and says, "Hey, I saw Bigfoot," and you're in the field of psychology or you're a judge or something like that, then your sanity comes into question. So yeah, I think that's a lot of it is.
There's just a stigma attached to it for some people, and that's what they're scared to death of. What other people think. Myself, I really don't care. I mean, people want to say I'm crazy. Hey, guess what? I know I'm crazy.
Yeah, I know too.
Well, I mean, I've not had to, when I first got into this, and there was some blowback in my family, but I mean, once they saw and I showed them the evidence I had and related the experiences to me, they've come around. They're all right with it. My mom, it loves it. She went to the watch me speak it, and so did my sister. So, it was, it was really gratifying that, that they're on board now. They don't think I'm, Scott the Loon anymore. So, but I think the stigmatism is going down slowly but surely. I mean, I think for all that was wrong with finding Bigfoot, the one thing it did do is it brought that kind of into the mainstream, where it wasn't. I'm saying, it was cool to like Bobo, and it was cool to go squatching, that sort of thing.
Well, I agree with that. The only thing is, I think before finding Bigfoot, there was Monster Quest. We had a number of different shows that did highlight Bigfoot, but I think finding Bigfoot came at the right time, and it did provide a group of people that kind of gave a little bit of diversity to the story, but it kind of stayed to one side. Of course, it's going to be safe, but it did highlight that there's more out there than what most people think. I mean, most people I talk to over the years, when I say that Bigfoot is a species that has multiple, individuals in it, they're flabbergasted because they think it's something like Santa Claus, that it's an individual creature going around the entire country, walking across the road and being seen. I mean, that's how most people think, and to me, it's just mind-boggling because I'm like, how could that how could that be? Yeah. But that's most people's mentality, that really they don't believe in Bigfoot because they think it's some sort of mystical being that is a singular entity.
Yeah.
Right. And I think before we go much further, Scott, if you would like to send us a link to, where people can order your books,
sure,
we'd be more than happy to put it up on the site for you.
I'll email them to you or message them to you.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
As you know, there's really no money in Bigfoot, so I mean, just this year I bought myself a new computer and some other. I upgraded my back trail camera and got me it's a knockoff, but it's like a GoPro. So but back when I was really going every weekend, I. Even though I'm not that far from the mountains, it's still 30 miles. It's 60 miles. 60 miles, and a weekend and the gas and everything else. I mean, somebody accused me of trying to Oh, you're trying to make money off of it. Well, yeah, well, duh. I don't get supported.
And
I
you're
go buy an
spending a
SD
lot.
card. No, I don't have any support, and I don't want support. But I'm just saying, it's all self-funded, and so if I can recoup just a little bit, it's not like I'm selling thousands of these. I asked David Pilates one time. I said, "Be honest with me with his books, because his books, hit a pretty wide audience." And he said, "Look, Scott," he said, "there are 5,000 to 7,000 people in the country that are really interested and serious about Bigfoot." At the time I talked to him, he said, and that's about, if you really put out a popular book, you might sell 10,000 copies, maybe, and that would be phenomenally fantastic. And my book sales are, if I sell 500, I'm ecstatic. So what I'm saying. It's more just about getting the information out there, having it written down, so you can share it with other people, and like an interview like this, you can't, an hour, 90 minutes, you can't get into anything.
No.
Really, the deep dive, and the books are, something that people can buy and get into the deep dive if they want to.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And really, the only author that I've heard that really sells a lot is Lauren Coleman, because it's more of a mainstream perspective. And
Yeah.
when you get into perspectives that are outside that mainstream, that are more niche in the community, that's when you really don't have the audience and the backing. But yeah, you do. You spend a lot. We all spend quite a bit of money to go out to research areas. One of my research areas is 50 miles away. But you do it because you love doing it, but you do want to go, all right, I do need to recoup some of this because it is getting a little too expensive, and I can't warrant going out every weekend. But yeah, people look at it as like, oh, you're, like you said, trying to make money and stuff, and it's like, there's no money in this. I mean, there's really, there's very few people that have actually found any kind of fortunes with this venture, and that's not the reason to get into it, and that's not the reason most of us are involved. There might be a few, but the majority of us are in it because we are fascinated with this subject, and we're fascinated with what we've experienced.
Right.
Agree.
I mean, if anybody can, cook up a way to make money at it, by all means, let me know.
Yeah.
Because the only money I know of that's, involved in it is my own.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, oh yeah, the equipment. I mean, people don't realize, that high definition camera I bought, SD cards, batteries, stuff adds up. You got to buy, if you're going to produce a video of any quality, you've got to buy the software, right? You got to have the computer.
Yep.
Back when I was throwing the trail cameras up, I bought all those. Of course, I had the cheapest, I bought the best I could afford.
Right.
But still, and then you had to keep batteries in them and everything else.
Yep.
It's like anything. It's like hunting or golfing or anything. It can, it could get expensive. It could be a quote hobby that gets expensive fast.
Yes, it can. Well, we are past the top of the hour. We actually went a little over, but that's okay. This has been a great conversation with you, Scott, and with your research. There's too much to include in an hour or even two. But we would like to have you back on here if you would be willing.
Sure. Okay. Love to come back.
We've had a few hiccups here, some audio issues and stuff, but I think for the most part it's been a successful first show. We will be running one more commercial, and then I will be running the latest investigation that I did with Tyler Tharp. We went out to this place called Camp Chesterfield, and we had some interesting experiences out there regarding the paranormal. So we will be running that. But again, I want to say thank you, Scott, for being on the show today. And Gene,
you're welcome.
Thank you. And Gene, as always, thanks.
My pleasure.
All right.
Before we end, Scott, we seriously need to get together and hit the woods again.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, you know how it is.
Oh yeah.
You've got, text me. We'll try to get together. This fall is going to be. We've got a big. I've got. I'm not going to be in town. I've got a big trip coming in September. Me and my wife going on an anniversary trip, and then in October I got 2 weekends in October. But maybe closer to Christmas, or maybe after the first year, we can get together and head out there.
It's called Life
Sounds
Happens.
like a plan.
Well, yeah, it's called life.
Yeah.
A lot of it.
Exactly.
All right, guys. Well, thanks again, Gene. I'll see you back next week, right?
Oh yes,
Well, you want
absolutely.
back next, Gene?
Yeah, Gene. Well, if you want to
Well,
be back
thank
on,
you
Scott, you
so much.
can. It's perfectly fine. I mean, more than welcome to have you.
No, I think you need some variety before I come back.
Okay.
But yeah, but I'd definitely love to come back and do this again. This was great.
Glad to have you.
All
Thank
right.
you so much.
All righty.
All right, guys. Well, let me go ahead and go into commercial here, and then we'll close it out. Make sure I got all the audio right, because, yeah, that's been a pain.